Discover the incredible transformation when you use castor oil at night. You won't believe. Number 7. Emily's hands trembled as she lifted the dusty bottle from her grandmother's attic, its label barely legible. She remembered the stories, each drop carrying a bit of her heritage. Yet, as a single mother and nurse working herself to the bone, she wondered what could be more beneficial than a few non-hemorrhagic hours of sleep. What was castor oil going to do for her now, at this crossroads where the weight of bills and exhaustion threatened to crush her spirit? She couldn't help but smirk bitterly. It felt almost comical to believe in an old remedy now that life seemed so heavy. But desperation gnawed at her, pushing her to try something, anything, to lighten her load. Back home, as she poured the thick liquid into her palm, her mind raced. Would this be another useless attempt at change? Another thing in a long line of failed solutions? The looming deadline for her rent nagged at her, a dark cloud flitting in her thoughts. Tyler needed new shoes. The car was making strange noises, and every grunt from the hospital staff lingered in her mind like echoes of her worthlessness. One glance at Tyler's hopeful face reminded her why she fought. But what was the point if she couldn't keep her head above water? Slowly, she massaged the oil into her skin that night, a self-care ritual barely visible amid her chaotic life. She couldn't afford to waste time on something that might not work, yet a flicker of hope flickered at the edges of her doubt. The soft scent of the oil began to soothe her racing heart. Maybe it could be an antidote to her stress, a small victory in the face of so many challenges. Hours later, she awoke, feeling eerily light, invigorated, yet confused. Was it real? She pondered whether castor oil could empower her, and she hesitated at the thought. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed, and she found herself marveling at the changes, the glow of her skin, the joy in Tyler's laughter. But then her son's school project on health took an unexpected direction. Originally a celebration of her newfound oil, the excitement of community turned to sharp criticism. Rumors circulated about Emily's past, things she'd buried deep, and she braced herself against the whispers that swirled around the hospital. Her confidence faltered, and she felt the heat of embarrassment rise in her cheeks. As the rival nurse circled like a shark, she became painfully aware that the very attention she'd hoped for now threatened to unravel everything she'd worked to build. As she faced the spotlight she had never wanted, Emily felt a familiar sense of despair rising to meet her. Would she falter again? Would she become the mother she feared she was destined to be? The dreams her grandmother once nurtured felt just out of reach as family secrets began to surface, matching her frantic heartbeat. Emily found herself fighting against a tide of doubt, her words and intentions swirling like the rumors around her. What if she couldn't maintain the dignity her family deserved? What if this was another weight dragging her deeper into the abyss? Staring out the window at the soft glow of the street lamp, Emily realized she stood at an impossible crossroads with everything at stake. How could she unveil her grandmother's legacy while addressing her insecurities, fighting to be viewed as a competent nurse and loving mother? Every chance of hope tethered to the past burned bright but ominously, leaving her wrestling with the shadows of self-doubt. With every thrum of her heart, she felt the question looming larger than ever. Could she truly transform her family's legacy without losing everything in the process? Emily stared into the reflection of her own eyes, wary and uncertain, as the embers of internal conflict flickered just beneath the surface. Each morning was a ritual of renewal, yet the echoes of doubt left their mark like shadows cast by a fading light. As she prepared for another day at the hospital, the weight of the rumors clung to her, pulling at her resolve like an anchor dragging her into turbulent waters. She needed to regain control. Her hands shook slightly as she tied her hair back, an unwelcome sign of vulnerability. Striding into the hospital, the familiar fluorescent lights felt harsh, piercing the thin veil of her still raw confidence. Nurses and aides seemed to exchange furtive glances, whispers loading the air with tension that coiled around her like a serpent. Would they see the success she was striving for, or would they unveil her past, the stories she fought so hard to leave behind? Determination surged within her, a fragile but persistent flame kindled by the challenge ahead. She resolved to be anchor and sail both. As she walked the halls, reminding herself of the compassionate nurse, mother, and daughter she aspired to be, she also felt an intertwining urge to confront the rumors head-on. This couldn't be just a fight for her reputation. It was a fight for her identity. With each patient she attended to, she focused on the healing process, recalling how her grandmother always imparted knowledge with patience. Channeling that wisdom, she took her time. Each interaction became more than a duty. It morphed into a mission to prove herself anew. Her concealed talents in connecting with patients revealed a raw, untapped reservoir of strength within her. They smiled back at her with gratitude, grounding her in a way that dispelled some of the uncertainty gnawing at her heart. During a brief moment of respite, she overheard the rival nurse, Sarah, indulging in gossip with another staff member. "You really should look into her past. I heard there's more to Emily than everyone thinks." The undercurrent of ridicule solidified every fear Emily had about her acceptance and legitimacy. Anger flared within her, but was quickly suppressed beneath a veneer of professionalism. Instead of letting it swallow her whole, she found an unexpected will building inside, urging her to rise above the chaos. That evening, while preparing for Tyler's school project, a flicker of inspiration ignited. The project was due in just a few days, and instead of succumbing to despair, Emily took the time to craft it into a celebration of resilience. Together, she and Tyler could draw connections between the past and the present, showcasing her lineage through the many stories of her grandmother, emphasizing the strength found in struggles. They'd honor where they came from, while facing the judgment of the present head-on. This delicate balance became her mission, a tangible representation of how they'd overcome adversity. The glow of the castor oil bottle from earlier weeks remained a silent sentinel of strength on her dresser. As she massaged it into her palm each night, it became more than an oil. It turned into a symbol of healing, both physically and emotionally. Emily believed it could transform not only her skin, but also the course of her life. But as the deadlines pressed closer and confronted with the poisonous whispers from Sarah, Emily knew she'd soon have to make a choice: confront her past transparently, or let it continue to haunt her, dictating her future. She withstood the tides of doubt. The time had come to face her fears not just as a mother or nurse, but as Emily, a unique individual deserving of love and respect. As Emily lay down to sleep that night, her pulse quickened at the thought of the inevitable showdown with Sarah. With the reflection of herself in the window, she felt the finality approaching. Would honesty about her past empower her, or would it conquer her family's dreams yet again? In the dead silence of the night, beneath the comfort of her son's laughter in the other room, she prepared for the moment that would either shackle her or set her free. Emily woke the next morning with a resolve that felt different from before. The whispers that had taunted her for so long became distant echoes, overshadowed by the mission she had crafted alongside Tyler. Instead of spiraling into anxiety, she embraced anticipation as she prepared for the day, her hair pulled tight and her uniform crisp against her skin. Today was the day. She would confront Sarah and reclaim her narrative. The hospital bustled around her, yet Emily felt an unusual calm wash over her, bolstered by the support of her son and the lessons of her family. Each interaction with her patients breathed life back into her purpose. The moments spent with those vulnerable yet brave souls honed her sense of identity. She was a caregiver, capable of instilling hope and resilience. As the hours dragged closer to her encounter with Sarah, she strategized. Confrontation, she realized, would not be crafted from anger, but from authenticity. She steeled herself with every nursing task, reminding herself that each bandage she wrapped and each heartbeat she monitored was testament to her skills. No gossip would tarnish the impact she had on others. However, the gnawing fear crept back as the clock edged toward lunch, where Sarah inevitably would be. Emily played out several scenarios in her mind. In one, she would assert her competence, exposing Sarah's feigned superiority. In another, she would calmly reveal her past, transforming the rumors into a mere footnote of her story, instead of the headlines they had become. The cafeteria bustled with energy, yet Emily felt every heartbeat echo as she approached. Her stance remained firm as she spotted Sarah gathered with a few colleagues. Their laughter carried an undercurrent of judgment, unmistakable to Emily's ears. A wave of betrayal crashed over her as she considered how they had included Sarah in their circle, but now the circle tightened, framing only her as the outsider. "Emily!" Sarah called out, her voice dripping with an insincere sweetness. "Are you going to tell us what's really going on with you?" That moment teetered on a precipice, and Emily felt the eyes of the cafeteria upon her. She forced the tremor from her hands and met Sarah's gaze with an unwavering stare. "I will, starting right now." The laughter faded into a stunned silence, as if time had briefly stood still. Emily took a deep breath and laid out her truth, not all the details of her past, but enough to reveal how it had shaped her. Each word became a brick, constructing a fort against the weight of unwarranted judgment. As she continued, she saw nods among some of the staff, empathy reflected in their expressions, shifting the dynamic. Her vulnerability did not burden her. It empowered her as she reclaimed her identity piece by piece. Yet amid her newfound strength, the familiarity of anxiety lingered. "You think you can just share that and move on?" Sarah challenged, venom lacing her words, but Emily pressed on. "I won't let your interpretation dictate my story. I've earned my place here, and the compassion I give to my patients is my truth." She felt a raw power brewing. The moment was liberating, a culmination of her fears transformed into strength. "Emily," a voice cut through the tension. It was Carla, the head nurse. "Thank you for sharing. We all have our struggles." As murmurs of support began to ripple through the crowd, Emily's shoulders relaxed. Relief washed over her, yet Sarah's glare remained sharp. There was still the lingering threat, an unresolved tension that simmered beneath the surface. Sarah's disdain for Emily hadn't vanished. It just dulled momentarily. In that moment, Emily recognized a new chapter about to unfold, not simply battling Sarah, but understanding that this confrontation was its own entity within her journey. Emily's heart raced not with fear, but with the thrill of possibilities. The finality of her past would not haunt her. Instead, forging a new narrative would become her fuel. With renewed determination, Emily resolved to explore the depths of her emotional resilience, empowered by the connections she forged with her patients and peers. She still had choices to make: how to harness her strength amid conflict, or would the remnants of her past cultivate a renewed struggle? As she stepped away from that crucial confrontation, Emily sensed a greater challenge ahead. She had opened the door, but what lay beyond it? Would the commitment she embraced lead to personal and professional transformations, or ignite a battle she couldn't predict? It was time to dig deeper within herself, to confront new trials and dreams waiting to unfold. The following days unfolded like a delicate dance between newfound confidence and the familiar shadows of doubt. Emily moved through the hospital with a blend of purpose and caution, her interactions tinged with a heightened awareness of her role as both a caregiver and a woman reclaiming her narrative. Each shift, she met patients with a renewed sense of empathy, using their stories to bolster her own resilience. There was Mr. Thompson, who faced his illness with a dry wit that made Emily chuckle even through the heaviness of his situation. "You know what they say," he quipped. "I'm not dying, just upgrading my system." His lightheartedness spread, making her realize how humor could be a balm, even in difficult times. Conversations with her son, Tyler, soon became a refuge. He would often glide into her space with an innocent question that cut through her professional armor. "Mom, are you going to be okay?" More than just a conduit for support, he became her sounding board. Each exchange peeled back layers of vulnerability Emily had long tucked away. She found herself sharing her experiences, not as confessions, but as assertions of her journey. "I will be okay," she assured him, "and I'm learning to stand tall." Yet as the days passed, the tension with Sarah began to simmer in the background. Every encounter felt like threading a needle. Emily had no desire to engage in war, but the undertones of Sarah's remarks were clear. During meetings, remarks were aimed like arrows, disguised as casual commentary about team performance. "Sure, we all stroke our egos. Isn't that right, Emily?" With each verbal jab, Emily steeled herself, resisting the urge to respond with hostility. Her newfound mission was to rise above the pettiness, though it required an unwavering mindset. Instead of retaliation, she practiced her prowess at empathy. One afternoon, while tending to a patient in recovery, she stumbled upon an opportunity to divert the negative energy churning inside her. The patient, a young mother named Lisa, struggled to coax a smile after a hard day. Emily knelt beside her bed and shared a light-hearted story about her own clumsy moments in motherhood. Laughter broke the air, lightening the room, and in that moment, Emily felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Not only had she uplifted someone in need, but she also recognized the power of connection to reshape her own spiraling anxieties. When Carla approached Emily about a potential involvement in a nursing workshop, Emily hesitated for a fraction of a second. This would require her to step into a role that put her under the spotlight, an idea that made her pulse quicken and her palms clammy. Yet she remembered the laughter that had brightened Lisa's day. Despite the little voice trying to remind her of the whispers in the cafeteria, Emily nodded. "I'm in," she said. It was a commitment, but not merely to the workshop. It was a promise to herself to embrace every single challenge ahead. Days melted into nightly reflections where Emily processed her thoughts, contemplating not just her profession, but her transformation as an individual. The echoes of her past whispered still, yet they were fading operations against her evolving self. The battles with Sarah felt inevitable, but the thought of the upcoming workshop ignited a burning curiosity within her. What was out there for her? If confidence could outshine fear, if vulnerability could spark connection, where might this journey ultimately lead? Emily squared her shoulders and considered the potential. Was she ready for the workshop? Or was Sarah's looming presence still a shadow that didn't allow her to step fully into the light? The questions lingered like the faint hum of a distant storm, churning inside her, waiting for that defining moment. She understood that with every choice made, she etched another line of her story. The next chapter awaited her. Would it reveal a thriving professional or a confrontation that would cement her determination? The grip on her narrative was just beginning to strengthen. The workshop arrived far sooner than Emily anticipated. Days shifted into mundane routines, but the thought of stepping into a learning environment where she would lead discussions filled her with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The experience loomed ahead like the opening night of a play for which she had not rehearsed enough. As she entered the conference room, the light buzz of chatter enveloped her, and for a moment she felt invasive. Would she truly belong in this sea of seasoned nurses, mentors whose years in the field eclipsed hers? With a practiced breath, she reminded herself of her commitment to embrace challenges. The room was decorated simply but thoughtfully, each chair facing a projector screen, ready to showcase the fragments of knowledge she would share. Emily could feel her heart beating slightly faster as she took her place at the front, her palms slick against the surface of her notes. She glanced out into the audience. Some familiar faces, a few new ones, but all potential allies in her journey toward growth. Carla introduced her with flowing enthusiasm, a true champion for Emily's capabilities, and as she began to speak, Emily noticed her own voice waver slightly at first. "Thank you, everyone, for being here," she started, her heart rate gradually easing as she settled into the rhythm of her thoughts. Yet thoughts of Sarah ignited a flicker of anxiety. Sarah's absence felt like a presence, as if she were lurking in the shadows, ready to dissect Emily's every failure. Still, Emily leaned into her material, the importance of fostering empathy, the transformative power of shared narratives within the medical community, and she saw nods of encouragement from her colleagues. Halfway through her presentation, a question suddenly emerged from the back of the room. How do you continue to keep your emotions in check when faced with difficult patients? It was Jessica, a nurse known for her sharp insights and straightforwardness. A wave of discomfort washed over Emily. The inquiry felt pointed, almost like a test. Should she reveal the depths of her struggles? Awash in vulnerability, she took a moment, recalling the laughter with Lisa and the lightness it brought. "I think," she began, probing her own feelings, "it's about allowing myself to feel, not stifling the emotions. I use that energy to connect, to find common ground with patients." As these words left her lips, Emily felt a shift in the atmosphere. Heads bobbed in understanding, and she noticed some glances exchanged among her colleagues, interactions that felt deeply inclusive. They were validating her experience, affirming her place not just as a nurse, but as a human being, wrestling with the complexities of her profession. By the end of her presentation, a wave of applause washed over her, and she felt a warmth fill the spaces she had once viewed with skepticism. Emily had shared her story, her authenticity laid bare, and it had resonated. During a break, conversations thrived, and as nurses approached her, Emily felt that familiar echo of self-consciousness wane. They expressed gratitude for her candor, shared their struggles, and offered insights that stitched them tighter as colleagues. Each connection cemented the value of vulnerability she had come to embrace. Yet, when she spotted Sarah, lingering near the refreshments, an unease flickered back into focus. Sarah's indifferent smile sent an unexpected chill through her. This was no longer just about professional rivalry, but something deeper, a reflection of Emily's own internal battles. In that moment, Emily understood the workshop had not merely been a professional opportunity, but a pivotal juncture in her evolving journey. The confrontation with herself was drawing close, and with it, the realization that real change often demanded facing the shadows head-on. "Whether this is a moment of conquest or a battle, I will have my voice," she decided firmly. The grinding tension of the past few weeks prepared her for any impending conflict. But as the session resumed, she couldn't shake the notion. What would happen when the inevitable challenge arrived? Would she be ready to assert herself in the face of both external and internal skirmishes? With that uncertainty resting heavy in her chest, Emily acknowledged that the storm she had sensed on the horizon was now approaching. The workshop unfolded like a delicate dance, each movement bringing Emily closer to a clarity she hadn't anticipated. The conversations after her presentation buzzed in her ears, amplifying her adrenaline and sparking a sense of purpose. People engaged with her ideas, offering perspectives that deepened her understanding and challenged her assumptions. Yet as vibrant as the moment felt, the shadow of Sarah loomed large. Her mind raced as she watched Sarah's aloof posture, distinctly separate from the camaraderie blooming around Emily. Sarah's scrutiny was palpable, a deep-rooted sense of judgment that pricked at Emily's newfound confidence. It was as if Sarah were holding a mirror to Emily's insecurities, emphasizing the very fractures Emily had begun to mend within herself. Emily breathed in the shared energy of the workshop, deciding to steer her focus back to the transformative dialogue occurring just a few feet away. Overhead, the projector pulsed with slide transitions, mirroring her thoughts as they shifted from self-doubt to ambition. She initiated discussions about integrating empathy in patient care, advocating the challenges nurses face, and the importance of finding strength through vulnerability. The room buzzed with agreement, and stories that echoed her own experiences. Each story shared by her peers felt like a brick being laid in the foundation of her emerging professional identity. Women and men of all ages recalled moments when they had to dig deep, where emotional resilience wasn't just beneficial, but essential. Here, within this group, she was not simply Emily the novice. She was Emily the catalyst for change, someone who could inspire others to voice their truths. As conversations ebbed and flowed, Emily's gaze drifted back to Sarah. Just then, Sarah approached her, a hard glint in her eye. The weight of their conflicting energies charged the air around them. Emily's heart thrummed aggressively, a mix of fear and resolve flooding her senses. "I thought your presentation was interesting," Sarah said, her tone flat, devoid of warmth. "But you really think it's that easy to just connect emotionally with patients? Some of us don't have that luxury." The challenge lay bare, a bristling tension that begged for a response. Emily felt the urge to retreat, to shield herself from Sarah's antagonism, but this was her moment. She mirrored Sarah's steady gaze, standing firm. "It's not about ease but recognition, Sarah. Each patient is a person with a story. By connecting, we allow ourselves the space to heal alongside them." The words left her with a savory power, an affirmation of her beliefs. For a brief instant, Emily saw a flicker of surprise in Sarah's expression. She sensed a shift, perhaps self-reflection mingling with the established facade. "Interesting perspective," was all Sarah replied, but a subtle shift in the tension suggested something more meaningful had passed between them. Emily didn't have all the answers, but she realized confrontation could be a sign of growth rather than destruction. Each moment was an opportunity to assert herself, and instead of shrinking in the face of conflict, she chose to embrace it as an essential part of learning. As the workshop took on a new rhythm, Emily felt the consistent pulse of determination filling her chest. She took stock of the strength in her voice and the importance of her role, not only as a participant, but as a leader navigating complex dynamics. Later that evening, Emily sat down at her kitchen table, her notes scattered around her like remnants of a battle won. The day had offered her not just skills, but the realization that growth stems from both victories and adversity. She penned plans for implementing what she learned, mapping out initiatives to cultivate empathy and patient care, reimagining her role within her team. Yet even as her heart swelled with hope, she couldn't shake the unsettling uncertainty that lingered. Sarah's challenge was merely a prelude. The storm she sensed wasn't just about confrontation. It signaled a deeper reckoning with herself, one that would require not only courage, but significant self-inquiry. As she prepared to close her notebook, the faint echo of uncertainty nagged at her, a reminder that the path ahead was fraught with challenges yet to be faced. She leaned back, pondering. How deep would she need to go to find her true voice amid the noise? In that moment, she acknowledged the weight of her own transformation. Emily felt the palpable pull of the next step, a threshold waiting to be crossed. The real question looming now was whether she would step forward into the unknown or retreat into the comfort of her old self. The morning light spilled into Emily's kitchen, washing over her scattered notes like a gentle reminder that today was another opportunity to forge her path. The buzz of yesterday reverberated through her, igniting both excitement and trepidation. She glanced at her plans, meticulously detailing ways to foster empathy in patient care. Yet a stark realization loomed. The real challenge lay not outside herself, but within. As she prepared for her shift at the hospital, Emily sensed an electric tension lurking beneath her skin. It was not just about applying her newfound insights. It was about confronting her fears, especially with Sarah. The thought rattled her. Could she truly embody the change she sought to inspire, even in the face of such glaring opposition? Arriving at the hospital, the sterile scent of antiseptic mingled with urgency in the air. The vibrant chaos of nurses and doctors darting about felt familiar yet foreign, the old environment glaring with unexamined expectations. Emily's resolve hardened. With each step toward the nursing station, she rehearsed conversations in her head, every syllable a brick in the wall she was building against self-doubt. She found herself near a patient, Mrs. Lewis, who was quietly resting. As Emily arranged the flowers on her bedside table, she remembered her own struggles and the importance of authentic connection. Maybe this was her starting point. "How are you feeling today, Mrs. Lewis?" she asked, allowing vulnerability to guide her. To her surprise, an unexpected smile broke across Mrs. Lewis's face, translating a myriad of emotions. "Ah, dear, much better now seeing you here. Thank you for always taking the time to chat." Those simple words landed like a heartbeat in Emily's chest, anchoring her to her purpose. But just then, Sarah glided into the room, clipboard in hand, an air of authority shadowing her every move. The tension crackled, a charged space between them. Emily could hear her pulse echoing in her ears. With practiced poise, Sarah approached, breaking the moment. "Is this what you meant by connecting? Flowery conversations over task completion?" The sting of ridicule ignited a defensive fire within Emily. "No, it's about listening to their stories, about understanding the person behind the pain," she countered, the words tumbling out fueled by a mixture of passion and fear. "I'm afraid that's not going to save anyone," Sarah replied, eyebrow raised in challenge. "Maybe you're right, but isn't it worth trying to see the humanity in each patient? That's where healing begins." Emily took a deep breath, feeling surprisingly grounded in her conviction. Could this be the confrontation she needed? In that moment, Mrs. Lewis interjected, her soft voice cutting through the tension. "It's true, dear. Sometimes a kind word makes all the difference. You've brightened my day." A wave of warmth washed over Emily, grounding her in her reality. She turned back to Sarah, locking eyes and refusing to waver. This was not just about one's capacity to perform. It was a transformative choice, a new paradigm she was crafting. Emily sensed a shift in the air between them, a sliver of respect, perhaps. Yet the unease remained, reminding her of the larger battles yet to come. With a mix of anticipation and dread, Emily prepared for the next encounter with her team later that week. She began to strategize how to implement her ideas for empathetic care without hesitation. Each meticulous plan felt like a rehearsal for a larger performance, one where she would need to summon every ounce of her newfound courage. But deep down, a question stirred. Would she be able to sustain this momentum in a space that thrived on skepticism? The echo of uncertainty lurked, preparing to confront not just Sarah, but the very foundation of her beliefs. As she wrapped up her shift, the weight of Emily's realizations pressed heavily upon her. The confrontation with Sarah may have merely scratched the surface of a much broader conflict. The storm within was gathering, ready to challenge every facet of her growth. And as Emily left the hospital, a thought crystallized. The moment was near. The real test of her transformation awaited her, and she knew that facing Sarah again would not just be an encounter, but a reckoning. Would she rise, or would she let herself be swept away by the currents of doubt? The answer was looming just beyond the horizon, waiting to unfold. Emily arrived for her next shift, heart racing with both excitement and lingering apprehension. The hospital buzzed with the usual pace, the hurried footsteps, ringing pagers, and the constant chatter of medical professionals discussing patient needs. Yet today, a palpable shift rippled through her. She felt the weight of her purpose more substantially than before, a reminder that empathy was more than an abstract concept. It was a living, breathing practice that required commitment. Her morning began with preparing medications. The routine was familiar, almost comforting, but Emily decided she would utilize this task as an opportunity to refine her connections, her authentic engagement, rather than merely executing her duties. With each dose measured, she allowed her mind to wander back to Mrs. Lewis's smile and the power of that brief conversation. If she could, through simple kindness, enhance even one patient experience, she would be one step closer to manifesting her vision. Later in the day, Emily encountered Sarah in the break room. The tension from their last interaction still lingered, crackling like static in the air. Emily took a moment to center herself, reminding herself that this was an opportunity, albeit uncomfortable. She could allow this fear to dictate her actions, or she could confront it. After a brief hesitation, she decided to take a different approach this time. "Sarah," Emily began, the words almost a whisper, yet carrying a weight of determination. "I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation. I really believe there's value in connecting with patients beyond the medical protocol." Sarah glanced up, surprise flickering across her face, followed by an expression of skepticism. "You really think we have time for that? We're here to save lives, Emily, not make friends." "So, you think those two things are mutually exclusive?" Emily felt the heat rising in her cheeks, but pressed on. "What if we approach this differently? What if improving our patient care could be part of saving lives, just like I did with Mrs. Lewis? Her mood, her healing could be lifted by simply being listened to." Sarah folded her arms, her posture rigid, yet Emily could see a calculated consideration in her eyes. "You know this isn't about personal feelings or flowery conversations. It's about efficiency. The faster we treat, the more lives we save." Emily swallowed hard, grappling with her urges to retreat. "But what if we could provide both? Maybe there's a way to bring compassion into efficiency. It doesn't have to be one or the other." She felt her pulse throbbing in her temples, each beat a reminder of the risk she was taking, of challenging an established norm. For an instant, silence enveloped them, and Emily wrestled with a surge of vulnerability. Was she truly advocating for a radical change in a rigid culture? With a subtle scoff, Sarah broke the silence. "You're idealistic, Emily. Change takes more than just talking it out with patients in a casual chat." "That's not what I mean." Emily's frustration bubbled to the surface, and she quickly lowered her voice, remembering the warmth of Mrs. Lewis. "It takes persistence. It starts with small actions that can snowball. Is it really idealistic to think we can rehumanize our practice?" In that moment, the air around them shifted slightly, a crack forming in Sarah's previously stern exterior. Emily seized the opportunity, feeling a sense of steely resolve. "Let me trial this approach with a few patients this week," she proposed. "If it fails, then I'll concede that I've missed the mark. If it succeeds, then maybe we can explore this direction as a team." Sarah's skepticism was palpable, but Emily sensed a flicker of intrigue beneath the surface. "You're putting a lot on the line," was all Sarah replied, although the slight arch of her brow hinted that she was considering the challenge. As Emily returned to her duties, a rush of adrenaline surged through her veins. This was her breakthrough. But with it came an awareness of the pressure. She was now responsible not just for herself, but for the potential evolution of their team's approach. The consequences of success or failure loomed heavy on her shoulders. What if her idea thrived, but faced resistance? What if it failed and shattered her burgeoning confidence? Emily's mind spun with possibilities, each one a testament to the precarious journey of transformative leadership. She knew that soon she would have to further substantiate her ideas into actionable plans, and the clock was ticking. The true reckoning lay just ahead, where she would have to confront not only her fears, but also the stakes of her ambitions. Would she solidify her place in the world of empathetic care, or would she falter when the challenge escalated? Those questions loomed, dark and insistent, as she prepared for the days ahead. Emily stepped onto the ward the next day, her resolve solidified and her mind sharpened, ready to turn her vision into reality. She carried a small notebook, its pages filled with the beginnings of a plan. Her colleagues moved with the predatory agility of seasoned professionals, but Emily stuck to her path, focusing on her mission, to intertwine compassion with care. Her first patient was a young man named Oliver, recovering from a knee surgery. He wore a mask of frustration, his impatience palpable as he stared at the clock on the wall, counting the minutes since his last dose of pain medication. Emily approached with confidence, remembering Mrs. Lewis's smile. "Hi, Oliver. How are you feeling today?" she asked, her tone light yet sincere. He sighed, glancing at her. I've had better days. I can't even walk yet. Emily nodded, deliberately choosing not to rush toward the clinical questions. I've read that recovery can be more challenging than it seems. What's been the hardest part for you? Oliver looked surprised by the question. His gaze shifted, reflecting contemplation. I'm just frustrated. I expected to be back on my feet by now. Frustration can be really tough, Emily acknowledged, her heart racing as she felt the familiar flickers of uncertainty. But she pressed on, determined to forge this connection. What hobbies do you have? What's the first thing you want to do once you're better? A glimmer of interest broke through his frustration. I love playing soccer, he said, the slight lift in his tone illuminating the room. I can't wait to get back on the field. Soccer, that's awesome. What position do you play? She continued, guiding the conversation while preparing his medication. As they spoke, seconds melted into minutes, and the pressure of the ward faded into the background. I'm a midfielder, he said, a hint of pride creeping in. Emily noted the change in his demeanor. This simple exchange radiated warmth, defying the hospital's usual sterile atmosphere. She realized the importance of these moments, solidifying her belief in the impact of compassionate care. Returning to the nurse's station, Emily caught Sarah's eye. The skepticism still lingered in her expression, but Emily felt a surge of affirmation. She approached Sarah, feeling bolder. I just had a great conversation with Oliver. I think it really helped him. A great chat doesn't heal bones, Emily, Sarah countered, though the edge in her voice softened slightly. You're just connecting. But do you really think that's part of your job? Maybe it can be integrated, Emily insisted, holding her ground. If I can build rapport, trust, and understanding, doesn't that contribute to compliance? Doesn't that ultimately enhance their recovery? Although Sarah remained unconvinced, Emily could sense her hesitation. Perhaps a small seed of doubt had taken root in Sarah's mind. With every interaction, Emily felt the stakes elevating, the pressure mounting to prove her approach effective. Days turned into a blur of patient rounds. Emily engaged with several others, crafting thoughtful moments that bridged their medical conditions to emotional realities. She recorded notes, not just of pain levels and recovery times, but of laughter shared, small victories celebrated, and stories exchanged. It was becoming a growing collection of evidence supporting her initiative. But as she ventured deeper into her experiment, the cracks in her confidence began to widen. Emily noticed glaring numbers dwindling on charts. Average recovery times were still static, and her interactions, while fulfilling, were not immediately translating into tangible results. With her notebook full of anecdotal successes, she found herself questioning her next steps. Had she overreached? Was Sarah right? And was she merely indulging in fleeting moments rather than achieving substantial change? The weight bore heavily on her as she headed into the break room. A familiar anxiety gripped her, gnawing at her resolve like an unwelcome guest. What if she was merely providing temporary respite when faced with patients enduring challenges? She needed to assess her approach critically, adapt to feedback, and make a compelling case. The door swung open, and Sarah entered, her visage unreadable. This was the moment for confrontation that Emily had anticipated, the infinitesimal pause charging the air between them. Would she be bold enough to defend her methods or buckle under the scrutiny? Everything she dared to hope would hinge on the conversation that was about to unfold. As the door clicked shut behind them, Emily braced herself, knowing she might have to challenge the very thing she believed was right. And that uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud. Emily entered the break room, her heart racing. The familiar scent of coffee met her, but there was no comfort in it, just a stark awareness that this was the moment she needed to firmly address Sarah and remind herself of her own purpose. The stakes felt high, but she steeled herself for the conversation, knowing her journey toward fostering empathy within patient care had only just begun. Emily, Sarah began, breaking the silence. I've been hearing mixed feedback on your approach with patients. I'm concerned that spending too much time chatting isn't conducive to their recovery or to our workflow. The edge in Sarah's voice resonated like a challenge, and Emily felt the weight of criticism settle on her shoulders. Yet, she held on to her resolve. "I understand your concerns, Sarah, but I truly believe connecting with patients can lead to better outcomes," Emily replied, her voice steady. "It creates a supportive atmosphere that encourages healing. I've seen it happen in my short time since starting this initiative." "You're relying on anecdotal experiences. This is a hospital, not a therapy session," Sarah shot back, folding her arms tightly across her chest. "Patients need hands-on care, not just someone to talk to." "And what if talking is a crucial part of that care?" Emily challenged, determination bubbling beneath her insecurity. "The more comfortable patients feel, the more likely they are to adhere to treatment protocols. I've witnessed patients respond positively because they feel heard and understood. That emotional connection matters." "I get it," Sarah interjected. "But if you can't show statistical improvement, you'll have a hard time convincing others to follow suit. Empathy is nice, but outcomes rule." Emily inhaled deeply, familiar doubts creeping in, but she quickly squashed them. "I'm gathering data, Sarah. I'll monitor recovery times and feedback closely. I won't force everyone to accept my methods without evidence. But please, let me show you how this can work, not just in theory, but through measurable results." Sarah's expression shifted, betraying a flicker of intrigue amidst the skepticism. "If you genuinely think you can make this work, I suggest you start compiling undeniable evidence. If you can prove outcomes are improving through your connections, it could change the conversation." Relief washed over Emily, but the stakes were now higher. "Just give me a little more time," she urged, her voice softer. "I want to do this right, and I want us to thrive together as a team. I care about what we do here, and I believe we can be more than just caregivers. We can be their advocates." As Sarah turned to leave, she paused, a hint of consideration lingering in her gaze. "Fine," she muttered, "but you better deliver. I won't defend something without proof." With new determination, Emily embraced this challenge. No longer was her goal solely about winning approval or proving herself. It was about elevating both her practice and the experiences of each patient. She wouldn't just gather anecdotes, she'd dive deeper into creating a structured approach. The following weeks unfolded like a journey, each day presenting opportunities to engage with patients while meticulously documenting both qualitative and quantitative data. She connected with Oliver and others, yet proved that their emotional well-being positively influenced clinical outcomes. With diligent documentation, she outlined recovery timelines, satisfaction rates, and compliance metrics alongside stories of laughter, fear, and resilience. Yet, Emily also faced setbacks. Some patients didn't respond to her initiative as she had hoped, and doubt clawed at her. What if she was perpetually facing the shadows instead of lighting the way forward? What if all her efforts crumbled without the proof she desperately needed? During a particularly challenging shift, feeling worn down by multiple rejections, she spoke to Tyler on their way home. "Mom, why do you look stressed?" he queried, eyes wide with concern. "I'm trying really hard to help people, T," she confessed, battling tears. "But what if it's not good enough?" "Then it's still good," he replied, unwavering in his faith. "You're trying, and that counts. You taught me that." His innocent wisdom sparked a renewed determination in Emily. "Thank you, Bud," she said softly, feeling empowered by his belief in her. "I'll keep trying." And she did. Day by day, she learned to lean into vulnerabilities, fostering deeper connections and instinctively recognizing their needs. A balancing act that appealed to both heart and mind. She faced Sarah again, orchestrating feedback sessions and updating the team on her findings, consistently refining her practices beyond the realm of conjecture. Weeks later, facing a room full of peers, encouraged by Carla and others Emily had convinced to join her, she stood before them, prepared to synthesize the wealth of emotional and statistical data she had amassed. "Let me show you the heart of this initiative," she began, holding her notes with firm assurance, the fear receding as her voice grew warm and confident. "It's not simply about paperwork, but realizing that behind each number lies a story. Each milestone represents a life transformed. The compassionate elements we integrate can actually yield positive results. As she shared her findings, the room grew absorbed in her delivery. Charts reflected recovery times. Narratives intertwined, creating a framework of improvement linked directly to her compassionate interactions. A palpable electricity filled the air as people began to grasp her vision. Emily finished her presentation to thunderous applause, her heart soaring. She had done it. She had transformed not just her professional standing, but woven empathy into the foundation of patient care. Stepping down, Emily caught Sarah's gaze, and for the first time, she detected admiration flickering behind those hard-set eyes. "You weren't wrong about the importance of results," Sarah conceded, the tension in her voice relaxed. "You've proven that you can bridge the gap between compassion and cure. It's about time we rethink our approach." Their conversation opened the door to a new collegial respect, and Emily felt the satisfaction swell within her. A solid acknowledgement of her journey transformed. The shadows had dissipated, making way for potential and growth. As Emily returned home to Tyler, she reflected on the waves of doubt that had once drowned her spirit. She had risen, not just as a nurse, but as a catalyst for change and a mother to be proud of. She had achieved more than professional recognition. She had found her voice and redefined her legacy. And within the tapestry of her life, she learned that true transformation stems from confronting challenges, weaving compassion with care, and embracing vulnerability in the face of uncertainty. This was her moment, her story, her legacy, and she was determined to keep weaving it forward. Now I urge you, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the story alive. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative journey. And above all, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the vital importance of supporting this channel through these actions, so don't wait even one more second.